Hi, everybody. This is Samuel Loomis, newly awakened. I'm also Samuel Durbridge. You can actually go to my Samuel Durbridge channel, and I did a really nice thank you video or appreciation video to mothers for Mother's Day. And I also called it Parent Day and Advocate Day of my own choosing of awareness because there are many mothers or significant awesome individuals in our life that have been like a mother or a father or a parent. There have been parents that have had no mother, and their father took the role of both mother and father. And then there was others that have taken other roles due to choice of preference or um, belief or their own sexual lifestyle and belief system. And there are so many people that have been abused that needed to have someone to be there for them. So there are those that have been motherly or parent like because of the lack of the parent structure or the lack of feeling like they had someone in their life that took that role because of not getting it from the ones that were their actual parents, or they just never had them in their life for whatever reason. And there's some sad stories and there's some heartfelt stories out there. So I wanted it to be mentioned that, we're not always going to find everything we're looking for within the system that we all have grown up in or been part of. And that's usually why people leave churches and religions and cultures, is because they're missing what they know is needed for them. It doesn't mean that they hate the system or the individuals or the people. They mostly do it because they need that extra support in their life that they haven't been able to get from those who they were hoping they would get it from. And it doesn't mean that they don't love those individuals that didn't do that for them. It just means that they are doing their best to find that which brings them peace so that they can heal and so that they can keep going. In fact, a lot of them do it so that uh, a lot of us do that um, for our own individual reasons. And not all of us are going to be the same. And there's a lot that like to label those that leave churches or leave things as we're all sinners or we're all in the same bubble of being deceived, when it really has to deal with totally different reasons. And some have to deal with us noticing abuse and noticing things where we question, and because we question, we're told we can't question, or it's okay to question, but our answer that we're receiving has to be a certain way, or if it's not a certain way, then we're deceived or we're wrong. And that's not the case. Many may think that that's the case, but that's a judgment, that's a prejudgment. Um, Many don't want to look at the bad, and some even will say, well, no one's perfect, so stay not because of the people, stay because of this other situation, that the church is true, or because if you don't, then you're going to be deceived and you're not going to be happy, or you may be happy for a time, but it's not going to be an eternal happiness. You know what? And that's not true to me. I had an experience where I was suffering cancer and I found out things. And so my story I've shared, but I'm going to share a little bit differently this time. That experience I had in 2017 where I felt a Christ being hug and ball with me, but it was an unconditional form of self. I'm like, am I having a Joseph Smith experience? Because I always wanted to feel special, feel like I was being recognized and being someone just as cool as the prophets were said to be, or that I'm chosen and that I'm one that's been chosen because I chose to hear the call or whatever. Because there's this statement that says, many are called, but few are chosen. And so they're trying to get you to stay in so that you'll be chosen for what, and by allowing yourself to be chosen, you get blessed among those who chose not to be chosen and chose to fall away. But there are many that get chosen even if they're not within the religion itself. And that's where people get confused. If you think about it, have you noticed about all the apostles of Christ? They were all of different atmospheres. Why were they chosen? They always question, why did you choose me? I'm part of this group, or I'm part of this. I'm not part of that. Or, why are we around these people, or why are you around these people? And he would always respond the same way, that everybody matters, but he would tell it in his own parable way. So I'm not bringing this to bring religion. I'm bringing this to bring, this is what peacemakers teach, whether it's because of a religious um, gospel or religion to join or not. The one individual that really I follow is my heart. And that's what I was told to do. And so I'm not part of any religion. And soon um, when I get my records pulled, which I'm been told that they should have it on their desk, and I was advised, but I also was told that, you know, I'm just, I would get a letter once it's been pulled and once they um, agreed to the terms that are set there that should free me from things that I feel that I've been wrongfully affected by that church in. Doesn't mean I hate the members or the people that do good, that truly do good genuinely, or do their best to, or think that they're doing it genuinely. I care about everybody. I know that there's so many different modes of experience that we all have dealt with in our different life. But when we start allowing ourselves to explore things and question things and look into things, that doesn't mean we're going to necessarily fall away from what the real truth is, whatever that is, but it will help us explore who we are, and that we are our own unique form of creation that the creator or creation created. Big Bang, whatever you want to call it. I'm all about energy science, so I'm all about manifesting desired life, blessing things into being. Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Rhonda Bynes. I'm sorry if I'm not saying her name correctly. I really like her documentary on The Secret about her books, and I have pretty much all her books. But I don't disagree or agree with everything. I'm more about the unconditional method that actually works, that they did in non-medicine hospitals, that actually helped me when I noticed the method, even though the place I went through wasn't always following it fully. They were kind of going by their own business standards, and I noticed that. But they did help me to the degree, and I was glad I was able to contribute, because they do help people um, with the best they can do, and they work with you on payments and things. But I realize that we can do it for free, and we don't necessarily need the machines or those things. We just need to look within us. But the machines and things can help. I appreciate what was there that helped, and I just take it as that, and then I move on. And if I had more means to provide to that company, I would, because I would like to do more there once I have the means to do that, just because I like the machines or the things that the atmosphere that it provides. At the same time, I have a different approach, and I want to be around different individuals that I feel are more aware of what I'm aware of, and that will acknowledge it and actually do that method. And the method is so powerful, and it's so easy. And so I offer it as a minister. I'm actually a minister of the ULC, and I actually have shown that in other videos or other things showing that I am. And what it is really cool, because I did that because of the safety of leaving the church that I chose to. So as soon as I left that church or chose and realized I needed to leave, I went and became the minister for my own protection so that I could have belief by law and to heal and bless in my own way rather than feeling like I can only bless if I'm in that church. And because we all can naturally bless normally, but I wanted to be able to have the credentials of being able to marry someone and have the chance to marry someone if I wanted. Plus, I had credentials of being a Jedi Knight, and I liked that. So I went and I got that because it has a lot of concepts or messages in that about being one with the Force and being one with the energy within you, within your heart, and that everything's connected in everybody. And that's the law of attraction, and that's energy, water, science confirms it. And that's how you connect to what's called a unified field. Some call it the divine matrix or nature mind, or or holographic field connection. There's many different names or terms that people define it as based on what they feel they want to define it as, or that the science really defines it as. And so I don't know the real actual term of it, but it's basically just like a grid that is connected to all of us, kind of similar to what we all are individually connected to, as if we're in a matrix or a system that we can tap in and alter that system to be what we want it to be from our heart. And or we can free ourselves from the system and be in the next realm, whatever that is. And so they noticed that there is something to this, that a lot of atheists that ended up doing these studies in the military and other stuff became belief in God. And I'm like, whoa, they believed in some form of connection that creates stuff because they finally saw that there is an existence of something. But a lot of them that were atheists used to have a religious background, most of them that go that direction. But some of them didn't. And the ones that didn't, they hoped that there was maybe something, but they'd have to see it to really trust it and accept it. But they also, a lot of them don't believe in delusions, and they're very smart individuals and educated, and were therapists and psychologists, and really were about that. But then once they notice these studies and they notice um, these different program studies showing that you visualize, you can create reality, and that you call upon whatever is to create it. You call it a so-called miracle, and really it's just our energies connecting to the oneness of whatever is, and it creates that reality. So for those of you that don't really believe in God, the method I do is not based off of any really religion, but it has connections from ancient texts that where religions spawned from. So that's where a lot of the religions get the idea that you can bless and do miracles like Christ taught, and why the priesthoods and prophets and apostles who have the authority of Aaron or Melchizedek or whatever, that's why. Because it's not necessarily a lineage. Some think it is a bloodline, and they wanted to make it as if it's the bloodline. Well, the bloodline is just those who have the answers, have those records, that kept it in their tribe, basically, kept it in their royal lineage teachings of wherever they're from and whatever they really truly are, whether they're human or non-human or whatever. And so what is really cool about this whole connection or this idea is that we are all connected to each other in some form or some way. And they tested it out by doing sports program studies. There was NASA did, and then sports program did it, and then others all over the world did different things. But the non-medicine hospital in Beijing, China, and I'll put a link below on this to say go check these videos out, and I'll do it in my description, and I'll probably put it in my comments, depending on whether I have a comment section, which I should for this video. But if not, it will be in the description either way. But basically, there are three links, and one link talks about 72 hours, and that's Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton bringing up stuff. Now, if the links don't work, it could be that someone tried to stop it. So you can try to search for it, look up 72 hours, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and then you'll find a video connected to that somewhere. Unless someone messes with your phone connection, so try it again when you can, or do it on someone else's device if someone's messing with you. But don't worry about any messing. That's just them messing with their own karma if they do that, because it actually tells you in the studies, the golden rule type of idea. When you focus on something, you create that reality. And so don't be concerned about it. Just bless that away and focus. And for those of you that would like to do that with me, you can call me. My phone number is 801 499 4494. But basically, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Deepak Chopra brings it up about meditation, that they notice that when people meditate together, that people outside, miles away, that don't even know what's going on in that building because they're far away from it, or even just outside, they don't know that people are meditating inside. They, or the Deepak Chopra would be in there, or whoever. The people that were outside were still affected by the meditation that the individuals inside did. So your prayers and thoughts and feelings, if they're genuine and you have truth to it and you know that it will work, so some people say belief in it. Well, there's different variations of beliefs. So what I like to say is, if you know that it is, then it is, and it becomes that way. And so it's really just about having the focus that you know that it is, rather than just saying you have belief, because different people define belief differently. When you know that it is, and you see that it's a reality now, that it already is that way, then it becomes that way, because that's how you see it. Doesn't mean that it will be that way, but it makes it more that way for you, and you bring things more that way to you to be seen and to become that way. When you see something you don't like, heal that, be aware of it, but find ways to correct what is there so that it no longer has to affect you and you have something else that you have to make up for what it is trying to stop you from noticing. Be aware that you don't have to agree to every awareness of everything. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. It's really about your heart. It's about what you feel is right for you, not what you expect others to do. This is about your heart. This is about putting the judgment aside and then blessing things into being. They actually cured a bladder cancer under 3 minutes. Tumors in the same amount of time, or were able to do over 1,000+ people with several different conditions, and at the non-medicine hospital. And at the place I went through, it was similar with the machines and neuralistic programming connections that they did for healing. And I would say be careful of that kind of thing, but just make sure you trust the individual that's doing it. But regardless, I allowed myself to be helped because I had no other choices. I tried medicine, I tried all those things, and then I got drawn to raw organic vegan by someone who was a blood doctor within the religion I was in. But then I didn't feel right about the religion because of the trickery that individual seemed to be even ignoring, but knew was going on. And that just didn't sit right with me. I said, why would it be the true church, or why would these things be even real if they're hiding all of this? It shows that there's nefarious or horrible things that they've agreed to do, and they basically are those individuals they said to be careful of. So when you become the enemies they tell you to be careful of, that's when you have to think and go, I got to get out, because this is not safe. I have to be somewhere where I can be safe. So go within yourself and be drawn to where you need to go. Now, some will stay in because they feel like they can change the people within to be what is needed. But some will be like, you know what? I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. That doesn't feel right with me. I don't feel right about doing that kind of thing. It doesn't seem what needs to be done. So many people will be like, I got to do this other thing. I got to really follow this other path. And so they'll do this. They'll follow this other path knowing that they can't do the other because it's just not the right choice. So many of us, we've chosen to be careful because we know that if we're not, we'd be in trouble. And so a lot of us have chosen we got to do the next right thing because if we don't, then we're going to be very much affected. So many of us have chosen to be aware of what was needed, and we knew what was wanted or what was required. And so what we did is we're like, okay, we got to follow the right path. We got to do the right thing. We can't be part of this anymore because they're hiding this. They're not letting people be aware of this. They're conditionalizing healing, and that's just not right. And they're doing it because they feel they made agreements to be a religion, is what I've heard them others say is why they do what they do. And so they're doing it because they're trying to be careful for the members, yet they're causing and allowing pain to happen because that's what they agreed to allow to happen with the controlled governments, and is what they say and what they bring up. And when you look into the legal documents and you go to quitmormon.com and see the connections and agreements they've done and why they do what they do and why they have disciplinary committees and why they go after you for your sins in the way they have, you start to go, oh my word, it all has to deal with agreements they made by law. They're just vetting us, and everything they hear and are told by us, they let those agreements or those lawmakers know if it's required of them. And so I realized, okay, what is going on here? But some of the things they ask don't need to be asked. And they get so much detail from you that you don't need to even give about any sexual desire or sin you have chosen to do that they consider a sin. And so once you start looking and following and doing the next right thing, and you stop belittling yourself and shaming yourself into doing things, and you stop thinking that you're not good enough for blessings, you're not good enough to be in a spiritual place, because they make you feel like you can't be in a temple. Some are allowed to for the same situation. You're judged and told you can't, but they can because it's a different bishop or a different leader or a different location. So it's not always fair for everybody. It's always determined on the leader and the inspiration that individual leader is said to uphold and be allowed to do based on their their insight of allowance. It's all very similar to procedures of work policies, and there's always some leeway or some special condition that can be considered, but it's up to the leader and your bosses to decide whether that pertains to you or not, and whether that can be given. But by following that rule, you have to you have to not do it ever again, or you have to be aware that if you do, you'll get other disciplinary action. And some of the things are just based off of did you play with yourself? Did you do something? And why did you feel that that was okay to do? That doesn't even affect anybody else but your own body. That is for de-stressing or whatever that most doctors and most people say is okay to do for most. Now, there are certain conditions, but you'll know it when those things happen, and it's good to ask your health professionals that you trust, that you feel will tell you the truth, which I would also caution you, make sure you don't just blindly trust everybody, no matter who they are or what credentials they have. Make sure you follow your heart and you do your own research on top of what they tell you to double check their insight. Because we've been allowing doctors and other professionals who have gone to school to dictate what is good for us. We need to do it for ourselves. And I've had doctors that thanked me for being my own awareness of my needs so that they can be able to give me insight on what I've noticed helps me. And then I let them know. And I'm very serious. I like to find solutions. And so the doctors don't always agree with my choice of what I do, but they've noticed the results have helped. And they're like, keep doing what you're doing because it's helping you. And so that's what I've done. And most people, but they still know that there's more healing that needs to be done. And I let that be known. And I have doctor notes to confirm that. And of a solution of what I notice is needed because the other doesn't work. And so instead of suppressing yourself from healing, it's all about true healing and being what you know you really need to be for you, because only you know what you're going through. Others can pretend and kind of hear by what you tell them and what they see the symptoms as, but they're not always going to know unless they have the same insight of energy awareness and they can tell and they have special insights that you notice they have. But there are tricksters out there that try to act like they have insight when it's really not insight. And so for me, I give you the insight of what I'm noticing for me, but I don't want you to go buy it for you thinking that I know you. Even though I'm noticing awareness, I'm all about positive, build you up type of ideas. Look at the good, be aware of things that might be struggling for us all. But I don't like to look at the struggles. I like to find a way to achieve that which we all wish. And I figured it out. And the blessing it into being and saying now, 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 as long as it takes you and the individual to do it, will help create it, or doing something similar, focused, that you both know can work, that is connected to those studies where they've cured that cancer within under 3 minutes just by doing that. No surgery, no medicine, just observing it and blessing it and then noticing that it healed. It's cool. And I did that with a boil burn I had on my hand, on my wrist, my left wrist, at one time, and I healed it without any scar from that incident occurring. Now, when I was little, I've had scar from that, from doing something when I was little, putting my hand on a stove that I remember, and it left some marks. But and maybe some other things happened, and there's some others I didn't know were there that I don't think came from that incident, but may have from something else that I don't remember, or or something that someone secretly did. But I don't know. All I know is during that boil burn, no scar was left behind by me doing what I was inspired to do. It was within 24 to 48 hours. It was 48 hours. There was no more pain, and it was fully healing itself. And it was awesome. And so it takes you a constant, determined focus of 48 hours to 72 hours at the most for it to be done on its own. But you can do it within 24 on your own too, or sooner. It's just building up the belief of how long it will take for you and how long your body system helps with that energy connection and creates its awareness of life for it to be that way. Anyway, I'm trying to explain it the best way I can, and I'm explaining it in weird ways for some of you. What I want you to know is I have learned to love myself for me. And once I did that, I was able to research and look into things that I felt I need to learn for me. And there's some things that I've watched, and I'm like, I don't like this. I don't feel connected with this. I'm done with this, and I moved it aside. But there was some shows and some things that I never was allowed to watch or told I shouldn't within the church or whatever. That after I watched it, I'm like, what is so bad about this? This is a great show. It gives you insight to be a better you. And then you start seeing things in movies that you start to rethink and see differently than the what you saw as a post-religious Mormon or individual that you were in whatever religion or culture you were. And you start to, instead of thinking that everybody's out to get you, you start to free that from yourself. And it doesn't mean that there aren't people that try to mess with you, but you start to be honest about what you have seen, like I have on my Samuel Durbin's channel, but then you find ways and solutions so it's known, so it's not ignored anymore. So even if it is weird, at least it's been told because you experienced it. And if it's not something that is, um, if it's not something that needs to be ignored, um, basically, if it's something that shouldn't be ignored, then then it needs to be noticed, it needs to be told. Because why would you ignore any form of abuse? And why would you not let people know about it? I've always been told, if you have feelings or irritations about family or other people, don't tell people. Talk it with the family. And when you've tried and they've abused you when you've tried telling them and they didn't care about you, then you got to bring it up to someone else for your safety and others' safety, because if they're doing this to you, they're going to do it to other people. And you're doing this for their health benefit and yours and your safety, but then they try to switch and think that you're something you're not. And so that's why you have to stand up and show what really is going on and what you witnessed. And even if it sounds weird to some because they never experienced it or went through it, there are those that have and are noticing it, that are very intelligent, that I've met, that are PhDs and doctorates and law enforcement, that know these things happen. And for me, I don't believe in making up stories. I believe in looking at things with my eyes wide open now. And I love this because I learned this from people that I used to know when I was in the church about this. It was really hilarious. Basically, keep your eyes wide open before marriage and keep your eyes half shut afterwards. And I didn't like that back then, but now I'm like, you know what? I wish I would have followed that advice more in everything in life, not just for what that situation was happening, because it never ended up the direction that it was going, which is good. We never got married and never worked out. And I think that was a good thing for all those different experiences that I've had in the church. And I think those were blessings in disguise, to be honest. And I'm not just saying that so that I feel better. No, I really mean it now. Before I used to do it to feel better, and people would say it to make you feel better. But no, now I'm saying it because I know that it's true. Like, honestly, I wasn't being the full me, and they were letting themselves be what they felt their church and parents and family wanted them to be. But they respected that, and they chose to do that, and they cared for their parents that way. And they, even though they complained, they also agreed upon it. They complained, but they were okay with it. So they were just, it was just a game that their family played. They would do that. They would complain. They would do all of this, just, and then they would work it out and follow what they knew they wanted to for each other because they cared about each other. And I thought that was pretty interesting because that individual, and I think a lot of it has to deal with the background of her mom being a convert into that church. And so she still had an idea of how it felt when you weren't part of the church and how that lifestyle of thinking is. So there are methods and things that the church brought me some good clarity for life, but I've been able to kind of look at it and go, there's some horrible things going on here. There's some insight and trickery going on that isn't equal for everybody. And so I was like, I don't feel right about this. I'm out. Because one of the first things that I noticed was the abuses, and the agreements were the biggest reason why I chose to leave, um, when I noticed it. But I wasn't going to pull my name out of the records. I was going to stay in and to please my mother and parents and family. But then I was like, do you know what? No, this is not right. Because I realized that by keeping your name in, you're allowing them to mess with you and your children. And you're allowing them to do the programs that are agreed upon. And no joke, you can look at mormon.com and it briefly brings that up. It briefly tells you the agreements that they are allowed to do for disciplinary committees and other stuff. That's connected to gang stalking crimes and other crimes and agreements that they've agreed with FBI, CIA, and other agencies because of keeping people monitored and noticed just in case to catch any individuals that could turn into criminals. But what they're also doing is they're manipulating you to be perfect and to have this perfection paradigm to be affecting you. Not all are affected that way. Not all families do that within that religion. But most of the culture, there are people that try to push that or make you feel like you have to be that way or you can't be in heaven. And so you're supposed to become perfect. Well, what is it about yourself that is not perfect? Yeah, you may not have the best looking something. You may not feel like you have the best life or that you have the best physical figure or that, but that's just preferences. That's just you already knowing what you know is wrong with your body. You don't need to shame yourself for the problems that you know you're trying to correct. You just need to do research. You just need to find and ask the right questions and be drawn and listen to your heart. And so most people have prayed and thinking that God isn't answering them and listening to them, but really just look in your heart, and that's where the connection to whatever is in. So if God exists, God's in your heart. If Christ exists, Christ is in your heart. If Buddha exists, Buddha's in your heart. Whatever deity that exists is within you and all around you. And it's always there for you. What we've been taught is to think that there can't be a God or a creation that unconditionally loves you, is how it feels. Because if it unconditionally loved you, then there wouldn't be cancer, there wouldn't be all of these things. Do you know what? I don't know why all of those things were allowed to even be created, but it wasn't necessarily that creator connection that did it. We were given free will on this planet or realm or whatever, and who created those chemicals and those outcomes? I found out I had to deal with GMO foods. I had to deal with the elite governments and other people that cause those diseases and problems. So it was really humans that created these diseases because we were told from the beginning in ancient texts, we had the knowledge of what we were and how to be, and we used to meditate all the time. Now it turned into churches and they burned those books that told us those things, that our ancient ancestors knew why we were here and where we came from. We could have been from another planet system. We could have been from, because there's so many different races. If you look at it, it's not just about the weather. It's also about biology of interbreeding and all of this stuff. It shows that since there's so many different cultures and type of people, you start to think, where did we all come from? Because we're all so different, but yet we're all similar. Well, it makes you think that maybe we all came from different planetary systems and then came here, our ancient ancestry, and then we interbreeded with each other. But we still kept some of our lineage from the planet we originate from in our DNA. But then most of us that were born on this planet, we still have that DNA from wherever our original DNA came from. And so I know it's kind of a weird way to think for some of you, but the more you look at it and the more you think about it, you go, Not, you know what, there's something going on. And I've seen some other things and witnessed other things too that I have my own awareness of. But I don't expect others to agree or disagree with me, nor should they. I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful about being my own self now and not following to someone else's stories that have been altered over and over anyway to bring their own interpretation of how things have to be. And then following that indoctrination of this is how it is, follow what the scriptures tell you because that's the only truth and that's the only answer. Answers are all around you in every single person you speak to, you talk to, that you feel you should pray for, care about. All to me, prayer, all the prayer is, this is my definition of prayer, all the prayer is energy, okay? Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and then you're calling to a sky daddy or you're calling to your inner self. I had a friend that called it sky daddy. I thought that was pretty funny. Some people won't like that, but you know, come on. Whatever exists, it's we got to put loving humor in it. I'm not calling the creator anything horrible by saying sky daddy. I'm saying, you know, it's just, it's humor. It's not to put down the being that is. If I really wanted to be mean, I could say something even worse, and I won't because I don't believe that that individual, if even exists, is that way. And if they are, that's on that being. So the whole thing is, we're all equals in my eye, and if we don't treat each other as such, and that goes for higher beings and any other species that aren't of our species, whatever we are. And whether you're human or EA, HCT, BET, MET, or I like to also say neutrals, N is Nancy, ET, or whatever you want to define yourself as, we're all connected in some form. Whether you feel like you have higher tech or abilities than us and you can manipulate and control because you don't think we're smart enough, well, guess what? We have a lot of smartness to us that you are lacking. We have a heart. And if you don't have heart, then you're lacking full happiness for you. And that's why you're so cringy and you're about control and manipulation, if that's what you choose to be. But that's your path. That's your life path. That's your choice. Let me do me and let me have what I can have and let me be provided that which I know is needed to be provided. Stop suppressing me and others from being able to visualize and do the things and trying to keep our natural abilities from being used. Let us know what they are and to be able to learn how to utilize them safely so that we don't harm you. For those of us that know we don't want to harm anyone, and trust that. And if we do, then act at that point. Defend yourself just like we would defend ourselves if we were attacked. But you have a lot more ability to protect yourself than you've allowed us as beings to protect ourselves. And you say, well, who's that? Well, that's on you. We're just smarter than you. No, you're not smarter. You're just trickier. That's all. We're all equally important and we're all vibrating on the equal level. We may surprise you. If you give us a chance and let us be aware of all information, you're going to be like, whoa, they're a lot more intelligent than we thought they were. You would see. And you could teach us, and your thoughts will correct what you think will do. But if you have belief that will be something that is what we can be, then have trust that we can be that. Build each other up. Don't tear us down. Become one awareness and work with our abilities. Work with our strengths and forgive our weaknesses. But the weaknesses you think are weaknesses may actually be strengths. They may be amazing. And you'll see that at times they help. But it doesn't mean that we want to followed by our weaknesses all the time. We want to be the real us. And so anyway, I wanted you to all know that we're all important. We all matter. And everybody has their own interpretation of what they feel they are. For me, I just want to be the real me. I don't want to be fake or to follow something that is harming me. The only reason why I left the church is because they were allowing things to be harmed. And then I started noticing discrepancy of what they've done in the past and what they still are doing similar to those past agreements. And what I see that they're still following that same pattern. And I'm like, okay, they're just following that abusive pattern, just like we all have been indoctrinated to do. Once they wake up to following their heart and they start to be the real them rather than expectations of what they feel is required, and they start doing what they know is right rather than expecting what they feel is right and expected of others. When you stop doing huge high expectations and you start to let others figure it out on their own and help them when they have questions and let them ask questions and let them be okay for asking those questions and for following the path that those questions lead to. If it leads them to somewhere else and leads them astray, that's not leading them astray. That's leading them to their happier, healthier them. Because if they stayed with your teachings of abuse, it would kill them. It would harm them. And that's not what Christ is about. We want to love them. We want to care about each other. We don't want to judge them for their past iniquities or things that they've done or even things that they're doing. We need to let people be the real them and let them give insight of their own choosing. And it doesn't mean you have to follow what they do. But if you care about them, pray unconditionally for them for that which you know is needed for them that isn't bad. If people want to have their own shelter for their own health and safety because of issues they've had in the place that they live now in, that's horrible, then let them have the house and the transportation that keeps them safe and healthy away from the atmosphere they've been in. Give them that. Provide it in the way that they need it in. Bless it for them. Pray for them in that way and trust that it will be made. The other thing is we can do it immediately rather than just waiting and thinking that there's going to be a timing that it's going to happen. No, it can happen immediately. It can happen within 72 hours according to the methods of science with spiritual study, awareness. There is a time frame, but the time frame is relative, or not really relative. I don't know if that's really the right phrase. I got to look at the definition of relative. What I mean, time is non-existent. It can happen now, or it can happen later, or it already has happened. So the already has happened method is the best method because it creates the past to create the now into being. So that you don't have to wait for the future to be here because it already is. Because that's how amazing the connection to that energy field or creator is. It's unconditional, non-judgment, love for healing. Because they know that if you were going through it, you deserve that healing. Keeping that healing from someone just because they chose to do something that you consider a sin or horrible, that is their own personal preference for them, and it wasn't forced on others, is to me horrible to look at someone in. You should never put someone down for their own personal preferences of desires, choices, because that doesn't affect the other individuals unless they let it do that. And that would mean by forcing others into those acts. And that's when it goes too far. But them choosing to explore those areas doesn't mean they're going to go that direction. But you thinking that that's what the individual will have happen, then that's what will happen to that individual. You got to let people be safe for them, but you got to be willing to acknowledge and be more open and talkative about those things so that they know why you feel that is wrong and what the reason about that is. And make sure it's honest and truthful to what you know it is, not what others have told you, not what you've been told studies tell you. I want you to be honest with what you know is. I don't want you to indoctrinate and bring up things that are half truths. Be aware that it's possible that it could be one way or another, and let them know all the different possibilities. And let them know what you witnessed personally. But it doesn't mean that they have to follow that. But if it is true, they'll see it and they'll notice it. But if you indoctrinate them to believe it's true, then they'll see it everywhere as if it's true when it really isn't. And once they break their shelf and see that it isn't, because they start seeing inconsistencies because they're allowed to, then they'll be like, oh, that makes sense. Now I know what's going on, and they'll move on. And then they'll be like, I now understand what's happening to me. I now understand why this was going on. And it was because I was believing falsely, and because others were trying to get me to believe stories that weren't necessarily fully true, but there was something to it or possible. And there are things that are hidden. So for me, I say do your own research. And just because you do your own research and you think you find the answers, you may not have. Make sure you research all areas that you feel drawn to. And maybe some areas you don't feel drawn to will show up too, if you feel it's needed. But make sure you're following what you feel you can handle. But don't delude yourself if you see something that doesn't seem right or feel right. And don't say, oh, I don't see the fruits, or it feels horrible, it looks bad, so I can't do it because it's just it sounds horrible, and I can't believe that they would be so horrible. Well, when you learn a truth, sometimes it's not always happy and candy canes. Sometimes it's really a piece of crap or shit. Sorry for my phrasing, but I'm not sorry because I need to be bluntly and open about this. When it comes to language, let people speak in their language or form of self. And so if they need to swear, let them swear. It doesn't mean that swearing is good or bad. It just means that they are expressing their true self. And I choose not to swear that much, but I only bring it up because I feel that I'm all about positive vibrations, but I also like to be aware and let you be aware that just because someone says something that sounds negative or horrible doesn't mean they mean it or defining it in the way that you are thinking or feeling they're saying it in. What you think they're meaning it in isn't their meaning. And that's something I had to get myself out of from thinking in, because the church I was in got us to think horrible ideas about others on why they're doing what they're doing, and that all these people that are sinners outside of the church that don't know better, that they're okay, but once they know, then it's on them. But some listen and they see the inconsistencies and they're like, well, that's not really what I'm doing, or that's not really what I'm about, or I see what you're doing there. You're just trying to indoctrinate to bring more people in your religion, or that is a weird way to look at stuff. That's not really why people do what they do. Now, I do appreciate the teachings of being healthy. Don't drink, don't do these certain things, don't do that. So for me, I'm not really worried about drinking herbal tea or drinking green tea anymore. I drink and take anything that I feel helps my health, and I do it. I do anything that I feel is healthy, and if I find out something is affecting me, I stop it. I learn, I do the research, I look into it. I learned about raw organic vegan, and I feel more happier about that for many reasons. But I also used to, when I first learned about it, I was following a TBM emotional focus and going, once I found out how horrible it is, I started getting after people. because I heard that Joseph Smith or others were vegan or were said to have, and the other tried to hide it and to tell us and to trick us, and that the word of wisdom was corrupt and all of this stuff. And I started looking into it, and I'm like, well, if that's corrupt and if there's something falsely there, then there's a lot of falseness to everything that the church has taught. So I started researching more, looking into things, and started laughing at some of the awarenesses I was noticing. I'm like, wow, this is why they don't want us to question, because there's so many inconsistencies. And it's and and there's so many concerns and controls. And but the church is still true. So I stayed within it, and I stayed within it, and I stayed within it, and I kept staying within it. And then I noticed something so horrible that my eyes were like, what the hell? What is going on? This is horrible. I looked at it and I'm like, this is horrible. What I noticed, it was actually accurate information that was legal documents, and other people noticed it too. And it was always there, but others ignore it. And they don't want to see it because the fruits don't seem right. That's what I've heard. But then when I looked at it, I'm like, you know what? I can't be part of this. This makes sense to my whole childhood and whole upbringing and whole attacks that have been done to me, or getting others to think wrongly of me, or to get them to go after me when I bring up something that's real, or having them think that I meant something that I didn't mean. And so I learned how to protect myself, and I learned how to make it so that any false accusations or false things can be reversed in a kind, caring way, open way, and be like, you know what? Wow. Wow. And so it's just, they're really good at backpedaling themselves and protecting. And so you have to learn to be your true self, and whatever you choose is your choice. But I choose to be honest and open now, because I don't want to be anything that they said they were, and I just didn't feel like it. They were pushing me a direction that I didn't like what I was becoming, but it was also killing me. I got cancer and other stuff, and then I found out it was because they were hiding things from me, and because they allowed certain things to be done to me that messed with my health to be affected more. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. When they had the answers that could reverse it all, and still do. And I'm just like, okay, this is not right. This is not what Christ would do. This is not what a peacemaker would do. This is not what I feel a higher form would want, if they are all loving and all unconditionally caring and true love and true heartfelt love. So once I did that, my brain healed as I chose to process to leave the church. And then once I did that on quitmormon.com, or wherever I chose to do it as, I focused, and I started to feel free. And I felt it was the right choice, and I knew it was the right choice because my brain cleared, and things that I blocked out started to unravel, and I started to feel amazing. And then my heart felt like chains dissolved, and I felt free, even just from that moment. And then as I got on, I had to learn to communicate differently with my family and try to talk to them. And then I realized that they were still blaming me for the past me that I was, for acting out the way I did before. But some of the choices I chose was really normal to react in because of the abuse that they did. But this time I could actually handle it without trying to tippy-toe in how I felt about it. But then I said, you know what? That was horrible what you did. However, you chose to do it for you, and that's your choice. And you are trying to condition what I can say and what I can't say. So I'm going to say what I feel needs to be said, but I'm not going to try to force you to be something different than you feel is right for you to do. And I can't convince them to do anything otherwise. But I'm going to stand up for myself. And I became more aware of the abuse, aware of the judgments they did, and I became more of my own advocate for me and found other people I could be support for a time, and I really became better as stronger because of them, but I became my own protector because even they couldn't help me fully. But my own protection was what was awesome. Once I became my own protector, I was able to finally follow my own heart. And when I followed my own heart and my own outcome, I was able to finally be there fully for everyone around me. So I want you to know that I bless you. I did this long recording because I wanted to put my heart into it. And that's what I do with everything I do now. And if you want to reach out to me and talk to me, I'm really a really simple thinker, spiritual in nature, but more of a science full heart. I don't expect you to be part of any belief system or to accept or not accept a religion of any kind, because personally, I'm a minister that believes in that we're all part of the same universe and we're all part of our own authentic choices of decision. That whatever we do, we should do from the heart. And if we don't do it from the heart, it's okay. We'll figure it out when we're ready to do that. But regardless what we do, the more you follow your heart, the more you free yourself from any controlled system that's been controlling you. And the more you do that, the more you can free. It doesn't mean that you're going to be free from all attacks or all things, but you can make that happen. And I have a method that we can do together to help that. But I would also say you don't have to necessarily do it with me if you don't feel like you need to. Pray and focus on it for you. It is faster when we come together and do it together, but I want you to follow what you feel right about. I don't want you to feel that you need anybody else to tell you how to be you. You know how to be you. But if you want things to manifest in your life and you need some help, we're like unlimited batteries. So the more that have hope and see each other as already attained together, the more it shows up that way for us. So the more we have people encouraging us, knowing that it already is, as if it already is, and helping us see it that way, but also making sure that we're taking care of our initial needs as well and not ignoring them. We want to make sure that when we do this method, we're not ignoring the things as if we need this other before we do these other things that really are life-threatening and could affect you or children that you have or family members you have that you are meant to take care of and be there for, that need you. And so it's about coming to your own self-worth and then knowing that you are an authentic individual, that you're genuine. And once you become genuine and once you start pushing yourself and forgiving yourself for what you were and then making amends for what you were, it really frees you. And if there's anybody that feels like I need to apologize for anything, please ask me, tell me what it is you feel I need to apologize for. And I'll tell you, do you know what? I don't know if that's really needed to be apologized for because that has nothing to do with anything that's wrong to do. I'm being the full me, and being the full me is healthy for me. But if it's someone forcing anything upon someone or someone feels forced, sometimes it's your own projection thinking that it's being forced when it really isn't. This is a choice for you to watch these videos and hear me. Some are going to be irritated by it. Some won't resonate with it and they'll want to go to somewhere else. But there will always be some form of this video or these recordings that will resonate with you, even if you don't admit it. It's right there and you know. So be the you feel you should. If you feel that's to follow religion, then do it. If you feel that's to be a certain way because you have to, then do what you feel. But whatever you do, don't force it upon me or others, or don't cause harm to us because that harm will come back at you for harming others in whatever way you do. And I forgive you, and I hope that you don't do that. And whatever you put on yourself, there is always going to be a consequence of some form. But stand up for you and know that you'll be okay. And if you feel like you're being targeted and attacked, please reach out to me. My phone number is 801-499-4494. And my email is durbinsamuel@gmail.com. Or you can go to @DurbidSamuel on Twitter. I'm there as well. But again, call me. We can manifest things that we want to create, manifest destiny, or just pray things into being, bless things into being. That's a better approach for some people. Whatever you feel. It's just water science, energy science, and religious techniques combined that Christ taught and others said we all can do and are meant to do for one another. But that is your choice to do it or not. It doesn't mean you have to or that you should if you don't feel like you're ready or choose to do that. But if you do and you want to do that for me because you care about me, thank you. I appreciate that because that's what this is about. It's us caring about each other. And if you do that for me, I do the same with the method. And even if you don't agree or disagree with it, you choosing to take that step as if you do genuinely from your heart with good vibes can create that action for me, or at least help me on that way. But the method is you keep doing it until it appears. If you don't have the time, you do it as long as you have. You tell me that first off, how much time you have, and then you come back and do it with me again if you know it may not have happened yet. And then we just keep doing it until it already is. And then once it already is, we're good. And I'll let you know when that is. So let us do that, and we keep on doing these kind of methods for each other. We start small or big, whatever you feel agree to, but make sure that you know that you're doing it from the heart. If you're doing it from the heart, you'll do whatever that individual feels individually they require, and then I do the same for you, or that's what we should be doing when we do the method. And so anybody else that tries to do this same method with each other without me doing it with you, but you're doing it, be aware that it changes as you go based on your heart belief. And you can create whatever you want with your thoughts, your feelings, and emotions as one, is how the method or science from the ancient texts is said. And it's unconditional. So you put judgments aside, you trust that it will. You don't think that you're going to need surgery or other things for it to happen. You just do it, and you do it as long as you feel that it takes to do it in. And then you just keep doing it until it is the method. And the more you have belief in it, the more you trust it, the more it occurs. And so if you lack it, then you forgive the doubt and you forgive the lack of each other, and then it helps so that you acknowledge that there's still a possibility that it can, and that possibility will show up. It's so cool. I did this with healing a burn on me. Others have done it where they've cured bladder cancers and other things and health issues. Some have done it by thanking their healing and drinking tea, and then they healed. And some people say, oh, well, it was the tea that helped them. Well, yeah, of course it was. But it was also their belief that helped with it. Because there are other people that did the lack of belief and were upset and tried tea and other things in the studies, and it actually got worse. So it's really a method of belief with the water and the connections that you're doing it with. So when you do these methods, water is so important to have around you so that it can hear what you're doing, and then drink that water because it heard what you were saying about it, and it heard what you were saying about the atmosphere. So drink the water, take in the water because it heard you. No matter what room it's in, it vibrates through all the frequencies to wherever the water that you're thinking about is, and that water is hearing it. It's hearing your pains, your thoughts, your feelings, everything. It's like a little child listening into your conversations that you don't want the child to hear, and yet the child is secretly hearing it. That's how it is with water and everything around you, and everything that you care about, even material things, because everything's energy and vibration. So the more you appreciate things, the more that thing will work better and appreciate you back. Or it will be, or if it doesn't and it breaks, you get something to make up for it malfunctioning. You'll have something that will show up when you focus on good, focuses that there's a purpose, and then something even better will show up, or something equally as good will replace it. And it's always usually better than what you expected, or as equal. Mostly it's better. And you'll it's really cool. And but appreciate what was so that you can now have what is. And appreciate what is now that you've always hoped for. So bless you all. Thank you so much. Take care.